Whole show going crazy. Whole show going crazy. Top 5 we debating.
Top five. 5 Over Friends, the show where we debate our top 5 list on a topic chosen by a listener with the listener.
As usual, our friendship goes out the door once we get into it. This is 5 Over Friends. All right, so for the second week in a row, West has come in last place in the voting. So for his punishment for losing episode 8, he has to do the following. Have at it, Wes.
Kansas City barbecue is the best barbecue in the world.
Thank you. That is all that needs to be said. I appreciate it. Thank you for acknowledging that Kansas City is the GOAT barbecue capital of the entire world. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining a new episode of 5 Over Friends. Appreciate you tuning in to our 9th episode now. Had to remember, we're already on episode 9. It's pretty crazy. Time has flown by. We're joined today by someone new that I think is really cool. Another guest that I don't know, and I don't think, Wes, you know either, right? So we're joined by Kevin, and we'll let Kevin give an introduction to himself real quick.
How we doing, fellas? First time, long time. I'm Kevin out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Originally grew up in New Jersey, came down to the Dash for law school, which is kind of how I found out about the podcast through a couple of your recent guests, Roker and Oliver. I went to school with the two of them. They both say hi, by the way. Send you guys their best. And, Roker was telling me a couple weeks ago about how great this podcast was. So I started listening. He encouraged me to send in some topics to you guys, which I did. You guys were kind enough to choose one of mine and invite me on to discuss it with you. So really happy to be here. Excited to get into it with you guys tonight.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for coming on. And so were you there possibly for the 100 beer weekend? Because I want to find somebody that can substantiate that weekend.
So it's funny you ask, because the Melick Marathon, oh man, that was a time. I unfortunately was not there. I was invited. Roker did send me an invite months ahead of time. And originally it was supposed to happen in Winston-Salem. And because I'm a year ahead of the two of them, Roker and Oliver. So I graduated a year ago and I've been working now. And he said after they were done with finals, they wanted to have this weekend where they drank 100 beers. And he asked if I wanted to join, which obviously I did. But I also, I don't think I could drink 100 beers, period, let alone
value your life.
And then show up for work on Monday morning and and be a functioning human being. I don't think I would have been functioning on Tuesday or Wednesday either.
Yeah.
But I probably would have just had to call it a week. But I got some Snapchats from Roker that they led me to believe he had indeed drank 100 beers. I think by Sunday evening he was mostly speaking gibberish. So I think he really put his money where his mouth was, and he definitely put his beer where his mouth was.
Yeah, that is impressive, and it's been on record that I'm not a huge beer drinker on previous episodes, but that's just so much liquidy. Like, not just take away the alcohol portion of it. That's just an insane amount of liquid to put in your body. And
drink 100 bottles of water even.
Just
think about that. Just think about that. Well, I feel like when Roker was on, maybe he had about 85 beers before he came on. He was talking so much gibberish about his top 5 first. I don't know how he won that episode, but
I listened to it. It was a great episode, but that's what you're going to get with Roker. I love the guy, but he's a talker, although so am I. So we'll see how this next hour or so goes.
Yeah. So let's hear what the topic is.
All right. So this next topic is something that is both very near and also dear to my heart. One of my favorite people of all time, Will Ferell. We are going to be talking about our top 5 Will Ferell movies. So without further ado, I will kick us off with my number 5. It was hard for me before. I guess I will give a little bit further ado. It was hard for me to pick a top 5 because there are just so many. Looking through his IMDb, his Wikipedia, you'd be hard pressed to find a bad movie that guy was in. So this caused a lot of arguments.
I'll give you one. Sorry to interrupt. I'll give you one.
No, go for it.
That Sherlock and Holmes movie this year or last year, whenever that came out, that was
Holmes
terrible.
Watson, terrible.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was going to say that's Kevin's number 1. You're spoiling it.
Sorry if that's somebody's number 1, but I went in theaters and saw that, and that was awful. And I absolutely love Will Ferrell. He's forever been my favorite actor because his brand of comedy is just that's my thing. But that one was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and I had come to expect so much better from him and John C. Reilly. So that one I'm really hoping that, Seth and Wes, that neither of you guys have it on your list. But my list, starting out, number 5, Zoolander. And, this is maybe the first Will Ferrell movie I'd ever seen. It came out in 2001. So I was probably 8 years old or so when I first saw it. And so I can't in good conscience rank it any higher, even though I love it. Because the first time I saw it, I don't think I realized he was even in it, because he plays the villain Mugatu in his weird makeup and the hair. So I didn't realize at first, but just what a funny movie. You can turn it on at any point and you're locked in for the rest of the movie. I love it.
And it's timeless. I feel like I could watch it today and it still has the same effect as it did when it first released, right? Like it doesn't have time constraints, which I really like. It's a great movie.
And now that I think about it, it might be one of the first movies that I can remember that even had a cell phone. We remember that tiny little cell phone, Matilda, that little tiny thing. I don't know if any other movie at the time was really implementing cell phones. So they were really on the cutting edge right there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything negative.
I can't say anything negative. This is going to be a tough one to say negative things about somebody's, unless it's like, oh no, you put that way too high or way too low. Like that's about the only thing you can say, because like you said, it's tough to find a bad Will Ferrell movie.
Exactly. I think this is going to be a very collegial and fraternal top 5 that we've all got. We're all going to respect the choices everyone had. It was really a burden for me to try and narrow it down to just 5 to keep on this list.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. It was tough to even just narrow it down to the top 5 and the honorable mentions. It was to kick out who wasn't going to make even that list of like 10 that I was thinking about in my top 5. That was tough. So absolutely. I'll go ahead with my 5. I'm going festive here with my 5 with Elf. It is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. So I couldn't in good faith leave it off, because every year post Thanksgiving I'll watch it several times leading up to Christmas. It's my top Christmas movie. So honestly, it probably doesn't deserve to be. It's not the best 5, but I wanted the Christmas movie. I'll kind of throw myself under the bus there by saying that it's not in his top 5 all-time movies, but I wanted the Christmas movie because it is my favorite Christmas movie.
Wes, I have to agree with you because that's my number 5. I had to throw it on there also because like every Christmas you have to watch Elf.
Right, exactly.
I know it's not something you throw on all the time, but every Christmas it's like sacrilegious if you're not watching Elf at some point in the holiday season.
So that's why it slid in at 5, because to be honest, there's honorable mentions that are better movies as a whole. But if that is something that I make sure I have to watch for a month out of the year, at least a couple times. So it felt not right leaving it off the list.
So I had considered it. I'm not really a huge Elf guy. I'm not one of the people who watches it every year. I know a lot of people who do. And I thought about it almost as a pandering pick just to get the crowd to know that, because everyone loves Elf. I'm a bit of a heathen myself. I'm not really, into the whole Christmas movie thing. But if there is one Christmas movie you got to watch, it's always It's a Wonderful Life. So that's my one Christmas movie. So Elf, unfortunately, didn't make the list.
And I thought I was the old guy of the show, but here you come. It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, you're making me feel pretty young. So
yeah, I mean, I'm an old soul, I guess.
You and your bar cart.
Yes, exactly.
With your untouched liquor.
Yeah, it gets touched when I watch the movies. Don't worry.
Well, and Buddy the Elf was such a ladies' man, right? You have such a pretty face. You should be on a Christmas card. I mean, what kind of one-liner is that right there?
He knows what he's doing.
Buddy's the man.
All right, so we heard your 5. Let's go ahead with your 4.
Well, you guys are kind of stealing my thunder here because number 4, we're going with Zoolander.
Good choice.
Yeah, destroy the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Like, come on, let's go. Ben Stiller, get after it. Like you said, although Will Ferrell's not the main character in the movie, it's just such a good movie. Like I said earlier, I just think it's timeless. You can watch it. Just pick it up anywhere. If it's on TV, I'll sit there and just watch at least 15, 20 minutes of it to get those laughs in. So Zoolander, my number 4.
I'll go with my 4 then. I don't everything to be said about Zoolander I think's already been said with the it being mentioned twice. So we'll move on. I'll say my 4 is Old School. Old School. It's a solid movie. It's another one that he's not necessarily the main character, but he is a huge portion of the movie. It's a hilarious movie. I think I was pretty young when I first saw it, so it's again another one of those that like a lot of these depend on the time of your life when you saw it first and how late it was, and I think the ones that are later, I saw them for the 3-2, my 3, 2, and 1. I saw them a little later.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think that helps as well. But Old School, definitely a good movie. And it was tough. It was tough to leave some of the ones I left out, but I think that one is the fourth best Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I guess this might be a little bit of a spoiler. Old School did not make my list, but it was right up there. That would have been one of my honorable mentions. And I mean, Frank the Tank is just an absolute amazing character. How many times have any of us yelled out, "You're my boy, Blue"? Or
exactly. That was
don't do one.
The phrase of a decade.
It's classic. He's just an all-time. So now I guess I'm up with my number 4 choice, and I'm gonna go with kind of a wild card here because it's not really considered a Will Ferrell movie, but the parts that he is in, he absolutely steals the scene. I'm talking, of course, about Wedding Crashers, where I mean Chaz Reinhold, the ultimate wedding crasher who becomes a funeral crasher. He's kind of insane, but also kind of a genius. It's a great movie, even without those parts with him. But when he shows up and he's yelling at his mom about the meatloaf, I could not stop laughing. It was just unreal. Great movie overall. I think Rachel McAdams in that movie, I have the biggest crush on her character, Claire.
No doubt.
Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, that whole group of guys, they just make so many great movies. And having Will Ferrell in just for a couple scenes, and he dominates those scenes. He's so good in it. So I couldn't keep it off my list. So that's my number 4 is Wedding Crashers.
That's a great number 4. I really like Wedding Crashers. And like you said, I think he enhances the movie for those scenes that he's in. And I think that's pretty quintessential of when he's not the main character. His supporting characters are so lively and important. And like you said, steal those scenes. So I think that's a great pick for number 4.
Yeah, it's tough to find somebody who's, when they're in supporting roles, they just command that scene and really take over, and people remember those supporting role scenes more than they do some of the other parts of the story. It's crazy that he has the ability and the I guess acting chops to be able to do that. His acting style is obviously consistently this goofy, funny, over the top guy, but it's great.
Yeah, I mean, if I had that card in my back pocket, I would play it just as often as he does because he's just so good. So Chaz Reinhold in Wedding Crashers, that is my number 4. This number 3 is my next one. This was my last real hard decision I had to make because my number 1 and number 2 were pretty easy choices for me. And, I spent a lot of time agonizing over this, but I had to go with The Other Guys. And there's a little bit more of a reserved Will Ferrell role where he's kind of the straight man. And we got Mark Wahlberg, action comedy, lots of just so many funny lines in that. And for some reason, every attractive woman that they come into contact with is just in love with Will Ferrell. And he doesn't even seem to notice. Just the whole thing, great movie, very funny. They even give a little shout out to the Jersey boys in there. I'm from New Jersey, so I appreciated that. Great movie, couldn't stop laughing the whole time, which is just basically every Will Ferrell movie, though.
Some of the guys are wondering why you haven't shot your gun in the office yet.
I'm gonna do my tomorrow morning in honor of this.
Yeah, I really like that movie.
That's a great one. Again, I guess a spoiler, it didn't make my top 5. It was one of those in the honorable mentions. A great movie, but he has, I hate to say it again, so many good ones that it's just your top 5 can look so different depending on different things. So yeah, solid pick in my opinion. So I'll go ahead with my number 3. I'm going to say Talladega Nights, Ballad of Ricky Bobby. When that came out, I just remember watching it over and over again because it was so funny, and I could recite 75% of the movie word for word before it even came out, and pissed off everybody who I was watching it with just because I was like, it's such a quotable movie. Oh, scissor kick you in the back of the head. I know that's not a Will Ferrell quote, but those kids were absolutely hilarious. I think
like a spider monkey.
I think one of the ones that I still, for whatever reason, quote to this day is, my teacher yelled at me and I peed my pants and I'm still sitting in my pee pants.
It's great. I mean, even to this day, I ran track through high school and college. All the time I would just use the line, "I want to go fast." It's just such a great line, so simple, so dumb, but it was great. Just everything that he says in that movie is hilarious.
Ain't first, you last. That's
Man,
not,
that's
again,
really
again, not
that's
a
my
him.
life's motto.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my life
the
motto.
motto of this pod. We're getting ranked after.
Exactly. I like it. Yeah. So number 3 for me, Talladega Nights.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Ricky Bobby. If you don't chew Big Red, then fuck you. I mean, I love Talladega Nights. It's greatness.
So
I got to quote the late great Colonel Sanders, who said, "I'm too drunk to taste this chicken."
that was Roker about a day and a half into the marathon, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I love Talladega Nights. It's great.
I think it's one of those that holds up, like you were saying earlier. It holds up. Like I've seen it on, been flipping channels and seen it on, and I'm like, all right, I can't change the channel now. I've got to keep watching until the movie's over, and it's so funny.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just, I think that kind of goes for almost all of these movies that we've all said, and he's just so impressive with all the great movies that he's been in, because you start watching it, you're like, all right, I'll watch for the next 10 minutes, and the next thing you know, an hour and a half has gone by. Like, oh, well, time well spent.
Exactly. Yeah, and Sacha Baron Cohen, I think, was great in his role too. I think they played really well off of each other.
And the two of them, they made me watch the movie The Highlander. I never thought of seeing it.
Oh, really?
And they just kept referencing it. And I was like, I guess I gotta watch it now.
That's funny. Okay, so on to my number 2 is a movie near and dear to my heart. Anchorman is my number 2. I love Anchorman. It's incredibly quotable, not just Will Ferrell's lines, but Brick Tamland, all the guys in that movie, made of bits of real Panther. Shout out Paul Rudd. I mean, I love that movie. It was out when I think I was in high school still, and it was just kind of that, like you said, it depends on when you watch these movies, kind of where you're at in your life, and it was a great, like, I was growing as a person, and my comedy style or my humor style was evolving, and it was coming out at the same time as a lot of those movies, as far as like, I guess Anchorman came out and Dodgeball was coming out, and Napoleon Dynamite, they were all kind of around the same time. So it was like the golden age of my life in humor, I feel like.
Yeah, I had almost made the topic that I suggested, comedies of the 2000s. And then after looking at, that and Dodgeball and so many other movies, I was like, there's so many that are so good,
so hard,
that era,
yeah.
but I need to narrow it down by actor. So I limited on Will Ferrell.
This would have been impossible if you would have been. It had to include all the rest, like, because you could say just of 2000s Will Ferrell movies and cut the rest of it out, and that's a full topic. So it was a golden age of, I think earlier we were talking about in one of the early episodes, a golden age of hip hop, and I think 2000s, that 2000s comedy was like a golden age of some of the funniest comedies that have ever been put out.
They were so good. Yeah. Santiago, a whale's vagina.
All right, so without much fanfare here, I'll say my 2, and it is Anchorman. There's been
Ron Burgundy.
That's been a consistent theme here of some repeat movies, because these are some of the best ones. Not much to be said that hasn't already been said. Echoing that at that time I was watching a lot of those same movies that Seth mentioned, and this just fit right in. I was a little younger than Seth, but still, PG-13. Who cares? Who cares if you're not 13?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys stole the words right out of my mouth, because my number 2 is also Anchorman.
There we go.
I think that
trifecta, first time on the show.
Yeah, I mean, 60% of the time, Anchorman is perfect every time.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Wes said, what else can be said that hasn't already been? It's just an all-time classic movie. And so it was hard for me to try and pick between my number 1 and my number 2. And Anchorman, I mean, it was so great, and I love it. And using the lines, I own many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany. My apartment doesn't smell like rich mahogany. You guys can see behind me, I got a bookshelf. There ain't no leather-bound books on there, but it's fun to pretend. So you could go around telling people that. But and just Ron Burgundy, I think, just opened up an entire generation of guys. Anyone born between like the year 1980 and 2000, they picked up on Ron Burgundy's humor and kind of wanted to talk like him. for at least a couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
All right. So we had 2s across the board, and
Yeah.
the,
I have a
are,
feeling.
are we about to get number 1s all the way across the board too? I have a strong feeling we are. And
Yeah.
That's going to be great. But
Yeah, I really hope we do. I feel like that'll be pretty interesting, and also it'll make the 3, 4, 5s that much more important in the voting once we get down to it. But of course, my number 1 is Step Brothers. Just the absolute yes. I see some hands.
Boom! There it is.
I mean, it's just so good. The first time I ever saw that movie, I had to pause it 10 minutes in because I was laughing so hard I could not hear what they
You
were
wanted to pay attention still,
Yeah.
right? But you were like laughing so
I was
hard.
laughing so hard, and it was my freshman year of high school. I think it had just come out a few months earlier, and I bought it right when it went out onto DVD. I think I bought it on iTunes or something, and I was sitting in my piss pants by the end of the movie because I was laughing so hard. It was so funny.
with shoulder pain. You lick my butthole.
But right when that came out, my older brother had a buddy named Derek who broke his shoulder.
Oh God!
And so that was he was telling me that they had they had a field day with that guy.
Yeah, the first time I saw that, I vividly remember I was in my basement we rented the movie for a triple date. That sounds terrible, but we were a bunch of kids, and like our dates that we were allowed to have at the time with our girlfriends. I use air quotes around that because we were either 8th grade or freshman year of high school. I can't remember. It was dates we were allowed to have is like at our parents' house, obviously tripled like with another couple and watching, doing something where like, so that was typically you didn't end up watching the movie. You were doing something else. You were not paying attention to the movie, but, but I was like, no, I'm paying attention to this one. This one's hilarious. That was and obviously I've watched it a lot since then, but that I very vividly remember the first time I saw Step Brothers was in one of those triple dates where we rented it out of whatever movie store was popular at the time. That was back when those things existed.
Yeah, did Blockbuster exist back then? I don't even know if it was still...
I think so. I don't remember. Redbox may have kind of started to be a thing. I don't know.
I think it did exist. I worked at Blockbuster for a little bit, and I'm pretty sure Step Brothers came out like right after I left there. So.
Oh wow!
But I do not remember my first time watching Step Brothers. It's all just kind of melded together all 500 times or so that I've seen it. They all just kind of flow together, but it is by far and away my favorite comedy of all time. I love Step Brothers. I could watch it repeatedly forever. I just love it.
It's easily my not only most watched comedy, but most watched movie ever.
Yeah, I think so. I have another one that it'll be in my honorable mentions, which is another kind of wild card that's a Will Ferrell-ish movie. I've probably seen more, but I mean, Step Brothers, I've seen so many times because again, that was the first movie I bought on iTunes when I was 14 and back in late 2008, 2009, and I'd be on my way to track meets and I'd just be sitting there giggling along
watching it
with some of my buddies, and I'd have it on my iPad. Even when I got to college, I would still keep watching it. It's just so good, and every time you watch it, you laugh, even though you know the punchline's coming. Prestige worldwide. I mean, there's so many things that are going through my head right now. I'm like choking up and like panicking because I don't know what to quote.
Every time that I've fished or been around people who fish or talk about fishing, are bonita fish big?
Yeah.
Are they?
What's this guy's deal?
Yeah.
Well, all I know is my top 5 is going to fill a pillowcase full of bars of soap and beat the shit out of you guys' top 5. So
Hey, you don't say that.
They're pretty much like the same minus one movie, dude. So
well, it's still better.
I think ours is Elf is at 5, and then you have Zoolander, I have Old School, and then the rest are the same.
Yep.
Difference in
Yeah.
ours.
I mix it up a little bit with my earlier 3.
Yeah,
we had
the consistent one and
pretty
2
similar
is,
lists.
The consistent one and 2. That's
I'll be honest,
first.
I was shocked by. I had told a couple friends that I was going to be coming on here, and I assumed that everyone would have Step Brothers Anchorman 1, 2. That was not the case. I had some heated discussions in group chats, and some people were saying Zoolander has to be number 1, otherwise it's an invalid list. Other people were saying Talladega Nights or Kicking and Screaming need to be in there. All great movies, but I was shocked at the diversity, the old wooden ships of opinions that people were having on all the Will Ferrell movies. So I was expecting a little bit different from us, but great minds think alike, and I guess so do ours.
So these people you were chatting with were not learned doctors, clearly.
They were curly-headed fucks.
Yeah, what a great quote.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
That's
I think we could sit here all day, go back and forth with just quoting these movies.
Yeah, I mean I've got two brothers, and like all good solid male relationships, it's mostly built on movie quotes.
Mm-hmm.
And so between the three of us, that's just kind of how we interact with each other's friends. So that's mostly what we do. And so my mom, anytime where we say something that she doesn't understand, she goes, "Oh, is it from that stupid show?" The Office and every Will Ferrell movie and every other comedy that came out since we've been born.
All those stupid shows.
Speaking of The Office, what do you think of Will Ferrell's time on The Office?
I loved his name, D'Angelo Vickers, all-time name. You can't beat it. However, I thought I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it
wasn't the same. And
yeah.
you were used to it.
It couldn't be the same.
You were used to it as Michael Scott, and the character was the show was so intertwined with who Michael Scott was as a character. I think it was impossible for him to ever live up to the expectation.
Exactly. No matter who it was, there's no way they were gonna fill the shoes.
Yeah. I'm long on the record as having said that Michael Scott is the greatest TV character of all time. And so expecting anybody to come in and even have a chance at being successful is just, you can't do that. But if anyone was to, it'd be Will Ferrell. And I think he did at least a decent job. I had some laughs when he was on, but I wasn't fully invested in those episodes.
Well, you can't be mad at the casting directors for that. I mean, they did their very best. You couldn't find anybody better than Will Ferrell to try to fill the shoes.
That's literally the only person they could have possibly gotten to save the show and continue on for more seasons. I don't think that anyone would have been able to do any better. But all right, so solid top fives. It's impossible to argue with anyone's, in my opinion. It's just a matter of preference at that point, because they're all great movies. So voters, clearly mine was the best though, but that's beside the point.
I thought yours smelled like a turd covered in burnt hair myself.
All right.
It was worse than the time the raccoon got stuck in the copier.
All right, let's recap the list, and we'll start with Seth and throw in some honorable mentions as well.
Yeah, so my list is 5, Elf, 4, Zoolander, 3, Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, Anchorman at number 2, and number 1, all-time great, Step Brothers. Some of my honorable mentions here in no particular order were Night at the Roxbury, The Other Guys, as mentioned by Kevin, Old School, as mentioned by Wes, Kicking and Screaming made my honorable mentions because it's a family movie and it's hilarious, and Wedding Crashers was to round out my honorable mentions.
With all due respect, and remember, I'm saying with all due respect, that list ain't worth a velvet painting of a whale and a dolphin getting it on.
Getting it on.
I was saving that for after. I was saving that for after Seth's recap. I had to. And even though our lists are just one off, it was gonna happen no matter what. If our list could have been the exact same, and I would have said it because it's such a great quote. All right, I'll recap with mine: 5, Elf; 4, Old School; 3, Talladega Nights; 2, Anchorman; and 1, Step Bros. Or Step Brothers. Sorry, I have it written as Step Bros.
I was gonna say, are you getting stuck in the laundry machine? Or?
I have it written down as
Step Bros.
Because I have chicken scratch handwriting and don't feel like writing out the full word. My honorable mentions: Kicking and Screaming has been brought up. I thought Anchorman 2 was really good. Obviously not as good as 1, but still a good movie. It made my honorable mention. The Other Guys. Another one that people, I think, sometimes forget that he was in, The Campaign.
Yes.
Really, really good one that I think his scenes really, really pop, I guess is the word there. He really stands out in his scenes. And
him punching a baby. That was and then saying, no one's like, that baby's head was really hard. No one's asking how my fist feels.
Exactly.
And then Zoolander also made the honorable mention. And I probably could have a whole nother list of honorable mentions, to be completely honest.
Oh yeah, I wanted the internship on my honorable mention list too. But
That's a good one. I didn't even think about that one, to be honest.
It's very funny that you mentioned that. So I'll start with my honorable mentions, and then I'll go to my top 5 because you mentioned the internship. That's a perfect segue. Because I had 2 other kind of wild cards like Wedding Crashers, and they were Starsky and Hutch, where he plays Big Earl, who's locked up, and has Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller do the dragon for the cocaine. And that movie, my older brother and I, between the 2 of us, we could probably quote the entire thing. And that's the one movie that I had mentioned before that I've probably seen more than anything. That was just, we had it in like the movie player in our car, so we'd watch it anytime we were going to a soccer game or something growing up. So Starsky and Hutch doesn't get nearly enough love. But that's a classic. And also I had The Internship. He was just in like one scene, but he's a mattress salesman who has a neck tattoo that says "Make reasonable choices."
Exactly.
in Chinese or something. And I mean, just thinking about it, it makes me laugh. And I got my Instagram handle from that movie. Actually, my Instagram name is Exchangeogram123, and that Exchangeogram was basically the Instagram app that Vince Vaughn's character was pitching in that movie. So
nice.
Internship has a special spot in my heart because of that.
I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't get as much love as it should, in my opinion.
No, I strong agree. I also had on my honorable mention list Old School and Kicking and Screaming and Talladega Nights, which you guys have all talked about already. And also Blades of Glory with him and John Heder from Napoleon Dynamite. Hilarious movie. And his name again is Chaz Michael Michaels is figure skating. It's so good. And also kind of a dark horse, but the Austin Powers franchise. He was in the first 2 Austin Powers movies. He was the guy who, if you asked him anything more than 3 times, he just had to give you the answer because it just annoyed him. And he gets dropped down and shot, and he lit on fire and all these things. So that was a great one. And so now to recap my 5, the winning 5 for this episode will be number 5, Zoolander, followed up by number 4, Wedding Crashers, number 3, The Other Guys, and of course I have the 1-2 punch of Anchorman coming in with the silver and Step Brothers winning the greatest Will Ferrell movie of all time award as given by me. So that is my top 5. That is what I hope the listeners will choose as the winning top 5. But yeah, so that's where I'm at.
I think it's pretty clear Step Brothers is the number 1 Will Ferrell movie of all time. I mean, if we 3 agree, then it must be true.
Yeah, I think anyone who doesn't have it at 1 in their list, again, is, as you said, a curly-headed fuck. But no, I think it invalidates any list, in my opinion, to not have Step Brothers at number 1. And apparently in our general consensus, Anchorman at number 2. So
yeah, I mean the 2 of those. Like I was saying, when I got to my number 3, I was like, this was my last hard decision because that 1-2 punch, I think that should just be a no-brainer. And everything else after that is agonizing because there's so many good Will Ferrell movies. But those first 2, that's just common sense.
Another league.
For me, 1, 2, and 3, as soon as the topic was given, that was my 1, 2, and 3. That there wasn't going to be anything to knock those 3 out. 1 is obviously the hardest solidified in there, but 2 and 3 are still. I couldn't think of a better one than those for those spots. So 4 and 5 were really the only decisions I had.
I waffled a little bit between where I was going to put Talladega Nights versus where I was going to put Anchorman because I really like Talladega Nights too.
Yeah,
and I do feel like, Kevin, your list is a little bit invalidated by not having Talladega Nights on there.
Ooh.
I mean,
that was a really tough decision not including it. I mean, I spent a lot of time. I'm going to hold up to my screen. I've got all these notes here.
Nice.
And here
you have been doing some research, which I definitely respect. You came ready to chat.
Exactly. I wasn't just going to, show up some Tom, Dick, or Harry off the street and just, spout 5 movies. I put a lot of thought into this. I put a lot of thought into this over the last, 26 years of my life. Yeah. But this is something I'm constantly thinking about. Will Ferrell's never far from the brain. But I mean, it was a tough choice to keep Talladega Nights off. And I think if it's on streaming, if it's on Netflix or HBO or Hulu or something, I might just have to watch it tonight just as my penance and my atonement for for not keeping it up in that 5.
If it's still on there, I know for a while it's been on Netflix, but if it's still on there, I think that's a solid move for tonight to watch that. I may join you.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though my wife doesn't like Will Ferrell movies, I know that's hard to imagine.
I'm a lawyer, man. Divorce, it's not that hard.
She doesn't like that brand of comedy for whatever reason. She just, I guess, doesn't like to have a good time. I don't know.
Yeah. You guys got a lifetime together. You got plenty of time to to convince her.
Exactly. She's more of a drama type of gal or reality TV, which not my thing, but
fair enough.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for the episode this week. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and thanks, Kevin, for joining us. We appreciate
thank you guys for having me. Appreciate being on.
Of course, we appreciate the topic, and listeners, you know what to do. Go vote for the best list. I'm not going to sway you in any way, shape, or form, but one was clearly better than the others. So
yeah, it was the one that didn't have Elf.
But thanks again for tuning in to episode 9, Top 5 Will Ferrell Movies. And join us next week. Thanks.
We're out.
Hey guys, it's Seth. When Wes and I decided to start our podcast, we used Anchor because it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And they'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's essentially everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thanks for supporting our show, 5 Over Friends.
We hope you'll join us next week as we debate a new topic.
Don't forget to submit topics on our latest Instagram post for a chance to be our next guest debating your top 5.
Subscribe, rate the show, and share with your friends to help us grow.
See y'all next week.